All right, everyone. It looks like our anticipated number of guests have arrived now, so we can certainly begin. Again, thank you so much for joining us today as we continue with the Domestic Violence Awareness Month speaker series. Again, my name is Lauren Gorlick. I work for Haven House, and so glad that you've decided to join us today. And I'm very honored to be joined by a local Buffalo celebrity, Maria Red, but many of you know her as Red Roxx from 93.7 WBLK. But before we begin, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of the sponsors who chose to support Haven House over Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We are so grateful to each of you and for the support that you're providing for survivors here in Western New York, and to make domestic violence prevention and intervention services a priority here in our neighborhood. So thank you so very much to our lead sponsor, Alexandria Professional, to our level 1 sponsor, Walsh Duffield, to the Rachel Warrior Foundation, to Buffalo Wealth Partners, to Nova, and to Opening Doors to Wellness. We are very grateful. All of their information will be found in a program booklet that'll be sent after we conclude this webinar series. So thank you again. And I do also want to share that a number of resources that we have available at Haven House are also going to be available in the chat feature today. This includes our 24-hour hotline, not only for survivors, but for loved ones and family members to reach out to. That number is 884-6000. It'll be in the chat. And we also have our online chat feature as well. So at this time, I want to share with you a bit about today's speaker, and then I'll let her take the mic. We'll have a chat function open in this Zoom webinar, so please post any questions that you might have or words of love and support, and we'll share it later on after Maria concludes. So Maria, or Red Roxx, has been in radio for 9 years and counting. She began as an intern at 93.7 WBLK and has been there ever since, landing her first radio show a few months after her internship concluded. She has a down-to-earth personality because of so many life experiences. As a mother of 3, as a domestic violence survivor, and growing up on the east side of Buffalo. She finds it easy to relate to her listeners and her followers, and she loves what she does, especially when interviewing. She began connecting with so many favorite celebrities through her radio career and as a member of the Secret Society DJ Coalition. Her web show, On the Roxx, is where you'll find her having uncut and very personal conversations with some of the industry's biggest stars. In 2019, Red Roxx became a contributor for Hip Hop Weekly magazine. And growing up, she couldn't listen to hip hop music in the house, so the music magazines were her favorite. When she became a radio personality, she immediately submitted to be in their top 5 DJ picks section and made it. And seeing her photo in that magazine was a dream. Afterwards, she was tapped as the brand manager for the relaunch of Hip Hop Weekly Radio, which has been another dream come true. Red Roxx is looking forward to being a positive contribution to the music industry while helping pave the way for other women of color in the industry, as so many have done before her. So with that, this is our greatest webinar attendance. So I know all of you are eager to hear Red Roxx share her story. So Red Roxx, take it away. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. I would have never thought that I would be on the other side of this coin, having had to seek services from Child and Family Services, and also having to inquire about services through Haven House and other domestic violence services throughout the years. I would have never thought that I would be here now speaking to others in support of your organization. So thank you so much for having me. My journey is one that is unorthodox. I literally have winged it my entire life. I was a mom early on. So, 18 years old, I was pregnant, still living with my parents, and moved out of my parents' house directly into my now ex-husband's house. And I just kind of was trying to figure out life and figure out motherhood as I was still trying to figure out myself. Um, the situations that I found myself in, I definitely probably could have avoided if I had just taken the time to really get to know myself and really get to know what life is about. But I didn't have that opportunity. I had to like really, you know, learn things fast, and be a mom and grow up fast. So, when you're young, and I grew up in a household with two parents. So I grew up with my mom and my dad. That's what I knew. That's what I wanted for my kids. I didn't want anything different for them. And I felt like I was going to make that happen for them by any means necessary. So unfortunately, that caused me to, be in a relationship for a lot longer than I should have. And, you know, with every breakup and every separation, there was always the hope of this person changing or that we would be, better suited for one another, but it was never the case. It was always worse every time. Um, and sometimes people would be like, well, why did you have more kids by this person? Or why did you continue to stay in this relationship? And um, there's a magnitude of reasons, why a person stays in an abusive relationship. Me personally, it was again me wanting to have that two-parent household for my kids, lack of self-love for myself, compassion for my partner, having someone who went through traumatic situations himself in childhood and trying to be sympathetic to that, uh, basically making excuses for him, then going to war and having post-traumatic stress from war. So I made all of these exceptions for this person and never once making really an exception for myself or taking into account, my own safety and health and well-being. Um, so, and then there's the notion of not wanting to have multiple, baby fathers in our culture, in the urban culture. So I wanted to have all my kids with one person. So yeah, that's why I stayed with this person for so long. That's why all my kids are with one person. And I endured years, we were like oil and water. We did not mesh well at all. We stayed together for all of the wrong reasons. And unfortunately, after the war, he just was not the same at all. And there was an incident where I actually had to exit our home half, basically, I was almost naked because I was in the process of getting dressed with my daughter, who was at the time, she was about 8 months old, on my hip. She was in a diaper, and I had to run and seek help because he snapped. And in that moment, I felt like I was going to die. Um, so, that's a life-changing situation. You know what I mean? When you're in a situation where you feel like this is it, you're telling yourself in your mind, this is it. This is how I am going to exit this world. It's very traumatic, So at that point, I knew I had to go. I literally left everything, house, car, everything. I packed up all my kids' belongings. I inquired about shelters, Haven House being one of them. Thankfully, my parents, my mom at the time, because during the time that one of the incidences before this happened, while my father was on his deathbed, and I remember I couldn't go to the hospital because I didn't want my family seeing the scars and the bruises, and I couldn't speak because he strangled me and my vocal cords were damaged. So fast forward now to the second time, my father has passed now, but my mom, thankfully, she allowed me to stay with her. And that was the end of that relationship. very difficult. I had quit my job, so I was just dependent upon him and his income, because we were trying to run a business together at the time that actually went under. And um, I literally I was in school. I had started writing for our local newspaper. I had food stamps, and that was it. Making $50 a week blogging for our newspaper, food stamps, and my school checks. Okay. I was taking out extra school loans to kind of compensate for my lack of income. Um, and I was determined still to finish my degree. So I did. I literally, I look back on it sometimes and I don't know how I did it. And I tell moms and I tell people sometimes, like, you literally have to just not even think about it and just do it. Like, just do it. Do what you feel like almost reflex. Just do it, because ultimately, that first instinct is what is trying to guide you, down the right path. So I literally was like, I'm not going to drop out of school. I'm going to finish school. I don't care how hard it is, how many loans I have to take out. I'm going to do it. And, in the process of me finishing school, he left town. He couldn't deal with the breakup with me, like literally being done. And I'm like, okay, great. I can move back into our house. Awesome. Move back into our house and woke up to a for sale sign. So the house wasn't in our name. It was in his sibling's name, because we were in the process of trying to obtain a business loan at the time that we got the home. So literally, I was now facing being evicted from the home that we invested in and placed, but I fought it. I got a lawyer who was willing to take on my case. He was willing to actually, I went door to door, found a lawyer. He's amazing. He actually was willing to, work on my case and go to court for me. And he, took his pay out of the settlement, that we got, because they had to pay ultimately for all of the money that I spent, closing costs and all of that stuff. So I say all of that to say this, your fight is all you have. And there was one battle after another, one obstacle after another, one thing after another, but I just kept fighting. And yeah, I wanted to give up. I cried many, many nights. I can't even tell you like how many days, like I just felt like hopeless and wanted to just give up, but I didn't. And in the process of all of that, I'm also battling mental health issues, because now I have PTSD. Now I'm afraid, if, because he was so upset by the breakup, what if he comes back, or, just nightmares. I was having nightmares and these things were happening where I was like woke, but I wasn't woke. And I was hearing stuff moving in the room, but it wasn't really there. It was crazy. It was just crazy. But I was going through a lot, major depression. And, I stuck through that. And, it took time, but I got through it. I used the legal resources also that I needed to use. Another thing that our culture is not really privy to is using the system, because you don't want to put someone on child support, or you don't want to get the police involved, or you don't want to do this, or you don't want to do that. But at the end of the day, your safety is the most important, and your well-being and your livelihood is also important. Um, so there were times that I used like a court mediator, as opposed to, going straight through and doing, child support. I would use the mediator as opposed to doing all of that. So say, hey, let's try to mediate the situation rather than going through the full process. Sometimes we had to go through the full process when it was just, he was fully uncooperative, or, verbally abusive towards me. So yeah, I had to do that. So then after that relationship, I kind of got out of that. The smoke cleared, and I'm on the up and up. I have my degree. I graduate. I landed a great job with great pay. You know, I have a car now. I'm in a new house, and everything is great. Um, and you know, I failed to really do the work though. You know, really do the work that I need to do on myself. Self-love is so important. And I say that a lot on my social media. I say that a lot in my book and things because, you know, self-love just prevents you from putting yourself in so many situations and being around so many different negative energies. And it really separates you from the things that are harmful to you. And, you know, I didn't do the work on myself to really love myself. You know, one of the things that my ex-husband told me, and it stuck out to me. He said, no one's gonna want you. You're 20, I think I was like 24. You're 24, divorced with 3 kids. Who's gonna want you? Why are you going back to school for communications? No, you're not gonna be able to do anything with that degree. You're old. You should have been got that degree. These are the things he was telling me. So now I'm out of this relationship, and I have these things in my mind. I'm like, dad, nobody's gonna want me. I got 3 kids, you know. So I almost used to hide the fact that I had children because I was so afraid of someone not accepting me for the fact that I had kids. And then when I would get into a relationship, I would say, oh, you don't have to worry about them. They're good. You just worry about me. They have a dad, you know, because he was a great father. Aside from how he was with me, he took care of his responsibilities when it came to the kids. But you know, so I felt like if I got into a relationship, he did not need to have any dealings. And then also, my ex made it so difficult for any other man to really be involved with me, let alone his kids. So I just wanted to separate that whole part of my life from any relationship that I had. So I found myself into another relationship where that was prime ground. That was prime time for this person. I don't have to worry about your 3 kids. Your self-esteem is low. Your self-love is low. And in my mind, all I cared about is the fact that you were not physically abusive to me. I really didn't care if you cheated on me too much. I really didn't care about anything. As long as you were not physically abusive to me, I can handle everything else. And when I use the analogy of like a person who's wounded in water and a shark infested ocean. And that is what sometimes we are when we're coming out of these relationships. We're wounded and we're in an ocean. And these sharks, these predators, they smell you, they know, and they sense you. And that's what it was. And now I found myself in a not physical abusive relationship, but a mentally abusive relationship, an emotionally abusive relationship. Now I'm with someone who gaslights me, who skews reality. And gaslighting is a really big term these days, especially with social media. And I don't think a lot of people really understand what it is, and they just use it because it's popular. But gaslighting is essentially somebody who skews your reality, who says, no, that's not what you see. That's not what's happening. That's not what's going on. And it really is what's happening, what's going on. That's what it is. But I literally would look at pictures. People would send me pictures, and I would look at these pictures, and I would say, what is this? And oh no, that's the angle of the picture. That's just somebody being messy. And all along, this is what it is. So that's also abuse. That's domestic abuse, because now I literally would lay in a bed some days, and I would be so mentally exhausted and not even able to work or do anything because I'm so mentally exhausted, because my mental health is being played with so bad. And I know what I see, I know what I feel, but I'm being told something totally different. And that's a big thing. And especially with like social media and things like that, you know, people try to separate life from social media. They try to say, oh, that's just Instagram. Oh, that's just Facebook. Oh, that girl, I just liked her picture. That doesn't mean anything. I just comment on. No, your social media these days are an extension of you. You know, me as a personality, my social media is an extension of my persona as a radio personality or as a, you know, social person. So, you know, it all plays into each other. So my thing is just, you know, it all comes back down to self-love, whether it's mental, physical, emotional, it's all abuse. And you can definitely limit, you know, these types of people or your interactions with these types of people when you just love yourself enough to not even put yourself in those types of spaces and energies and around those types of people, because you won't even tolerate certain things. You'll cut people off like this. Nope, I'm not dealing with it. And don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that you have to just cut people off at the drop of a dime every time somebody, you know, because people were human. We messed up, you know, we dropped the ball, you know what I mean? But there's really unhealthy interactions, there's really unhealthy things that we know are unhealthy, and we give people the benefit of the doubt. Giving somebody the benefit of the doubt is giving them credit. And we give credit to people who have bad credit and no intentions on paying it. And that's the problem. So at the end of the day, use your resources, talk to people, talk to me, inbox me. I'm here. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say, oh, you know, you should have been left or anything like that. No, I understand how hard it is to leave. I understand how hard it is to really figure out which resources work the best for you in your situation. I understand how hard it is to navigate the system sometimes, which I'm very thankful for, you know, things like this. So yeah, it's just, you know, just start anywhere, start today. If you are thought about starting, start right now and you'll get where you need to go.
Absolutely. You're so right. You hit the nail on the head, Red Roxx. I was just thinking back to when you're talking about gaslighting. I mean, 1 in 3 women we know are going to experience domestic violence in their lifetime. It's the stat that's out there. And when you were talking about your abuse, I was just thinking, like, there are so many women out there who maybe are experiencing domestic violence and are thinking to themselves, well, he's not hitting me, you know, it's not abuse, you know, and it's just that thought mindset that we have to eliminate. We've got to extinguish that. Do you have any what would
Yes.
you say to someone who's thinking that way right now?
So I was just watching a Netflix series. It's a short series called Made.
Mm-hmm.
And at some points I was bawling my eyes out because, man, it's so real. And that's one thing she said in there. And she went to social services because she just didn't know where else to go. And she was sitting with this social services woman and she said, well, honey, you need to go to the shelter. She said, well, I don't want to go to this. She said, that's for people who are abused. She said, honey, you are abused. You are, you know, she said, no, that's for people who are abused for real. And she said, no, so what's being abused for real? And she's, you know, she's like, he doesn't hit me, you know, and that right there is major because I had that mindset when I got into this next relationship. I had that same mindset. Well, he's not hitting me. He's not abused. He was probably the most timid person I've ever met in my life. Never would even raise a voice at me. And I thought, wow, I'm lucky because I got somebody. I went from one extreme to the next. I went from somebody who would fly off the handle at the drop of a dime to somebody who would not even raise their voice at me if they were upset. But the abuse was still, and sometimes I would say almost it was even more traumatic because it played on my mental so much. It had me feeling like I didn't know what was real from what was fake. I was questioning reality. And that right there, that, you know, yeah, of course I'm going to be hurt by a black eye or, you know, a bruise. And that bruise is going to heal. That mental play is something that's long lasting, you know. And I'm so thankful for my partner now, that I have, because, you know, and sometimes I even have to tell myself, you know, I have to still talk myself through certain things because of the mental, um, the long lasting effects that those situations had on me, you know. And I have to say, you know what, this is not them. This is, you know, and I have to catch myself, because what this person would say and would try to make me feel like was reality wasn't reality. And now I have someone who I can trust and who is someone I do love very much, and who's someone who is very patient with me and very understanding of this. And you know, sometimes I have to catch myself like, you know, this, it is reality what he's saying, even though this is not what it's been in the past. So it's hard. It's hard to work through. It's very hard. But I'm gonna say this: it's abuse. It's abuse. It's abuse. And when you find yourself questioning your value, when you find yourself um, at a point where you feel so low, that is because of the way this person is. That's where they want you to be. They want you to be there. So they say certain things, they do certain things to ensure that you're at this point, because you're the most easily manipulated at that point. You're the most easily fooled at that point. You know, you can't, you know, you don't have to have a black eye. You know, when a person is constantly lying to you, when they're constantly manipulating you, when they're constantly trying to persuade you of things that are, you know, not really real, to their benefit. That's not that's not love.
Right.
That is definitely abuse.
Right. Abuse is abuse no matter what. And you hit the nail on the head. Gaslighting is just so prevalent in the lives of the abusers that are traumatizing our survivors. It's so sad to see these wounds not heal, or not heal quickly. You know, domestic violence doesn't just end overnight. It doesn't stop. You know, you're not, those thoughts are still going through your mind, like you said. And I was thinking about something that you mentioned earlier in your story about, you know, financial abuse too. I mean, I think the stats out there that like 98% of domestic violence survivors experience financial abuse. And
Yeah.
one other interesting fact that I read recently is that in April 2020, um, abuse stopped, or cases of abuse stopped, because that's when we all received our stimulus checks when COVID began. And I just thought that was fascinating, you know, like that's part of the problem too, this economic instability too. I mean, it's prevalent, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is, you know. Um it, it it really really is. And you know, it kind of has, it's giving me this sense of, oh, I need to be this very strong, independent, you know, person, and I can't depend on anybody. You know what I mean? And I've also battled with that throughout the years as well, to make, you know, to say, okay, I can depend on you. You know, I can let my guard down, um, because you know, that financial piece of it, it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, a person will intentionally put you in a situation where they know you depend on them in order to control you. And that part of it, is, is crazy. So, when you're in a situation where you feel like you can let your guard down and things like that, you kind of, when you're on the outside looking in, you kind of can see all that. But like, even like my past relationships, it's just been it was very prevalent, the financial control.
Right. Right. And it's still abuse, as we've
Yes.
discussed, it's still a way to manipulate someone. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so prevalent. I was thinking too that, a lot of times there's a mindset out there that survivors have to be this perfect victim. They have to have everything in order to present that they are the survivor and not the abuser. And, even when they're acting out of self-defense, which is just a mindset that our culture has to, completely abandon, because just because someone is defending themselves doesn't mean that they're the aggressor. And
Right.
what do you think that takes for survivors to feel like they're being believed? It's no wonder they're not reaching out to resources. You know,
I would say, for that, it has to be consistency. Um, Sometimes we're our biggest enemy, and it sucks, but in the eyes of the system, they're looking for some type of paper trail, some type of consistency, some type of, well, why didn't you report this? But you reported this. Okay. Did um, I can say one thing though, states are different. New York State is one state that does take domestic violence very seriously. And I learned that through my own situation. So like one day I was picking up my son, my son from I was picking my son or my daughter from my ex, and he got enraged because I didn't want to talk, and he threw a big, like, like the lawn boulders that are like in the lawn, like the big brick. He threw that through the windshield as I was trying to pull off. And I called the police, and I was like, hey, I'm sitting here. I can't move my truck because the windshield is shattered. I don't know what he's going to do. I just want to leave safely. And through that, they actually arrested him, because even though it was now this wasn't my intentions though. My intentions weren't to get him arrested. My intentions were just to allow me to leave the home safely. And they still arrested him. He thought that he wouldn't get arrested because it was because it was our truck, and his name was on it, but it was considered community property in the eyes of the system. So they arrested him, and they ended up, so inadvertently, it actually worked out for me, because I probably wouldn't have pressed charges against him, but the state ended up picking up the charges. I wanted to drop the charges. I was like, I just want to get away from him. I don't want to press charges against him. He's my kid's father. He's my sole provider as far as the kids goes. I don't want him to lose his job. All of these things are playing into, but life works itself out. The state picked up the charges. They pursued him. He had to actually go to therapy. He had to go to rehab, I believe, for marijuana. And they had actually took his gun permit, which was one of the things that I was afraid of. And he had to surrender his guns. And we went through the process, I would say maybe about 6 months. But I don't think he got a serious charge or anything. I think he did end up getting maybe a misdemeanor. But it kind of, after that, the situation kind of started to resolve itself. Like it started to calm down considerably after that. And it probably wouldn't have if that situation didn't didn't happen. But I say that to say, a lot of states are different as far as, how seriously they take your crime. My sister did almost 10 years in prison in another state. She was defending herself against her significant other and stabbed him, and he passed away because of where she stabbed him in error. Like she just stabbed him to like get him away from her, and he ended up passing away. She did 10 years because their domestic violence laws were not as strict as like other states. Now, had that been New York State, and there were testimonies and everything, people who were there, all, everything in her favor, and they still, sentenced her to a considerable amount of time. So every state is different. So, but had she maybe went to the police prior to, or maybe had some type of record, even if she didn't go to the police, maybe she went to just, an agency or somebody just to kind of put something on record to say that this is happening, prior to that the situation might have gone differently. It's really hard to say. All I can really say is, do what you got to do for you to protect you. Keep your records. I know that it may not be easy to just leave a situation immediately. I know you may not, have the family support or have the resources immediately available for you just to leave. Or may not want to uproot your kids right away, whatever the case may be, but just start making a plan, start taking your records down, start telling people close to you, if you have a worker, whether it's, maybe social services or a counselor or somebody, tell somebody what's going on that can help, corroborate what's happening.
Absolutely. It's important just to reach out and to place that trust in those loved ones that are there for you, that are willing to take you through those challenging times. Absolutely. Red Roxx, there are so many messages of love and support in the chat function right now. I hope you're seeing it. People saying thank you for sharing your story, and love that you're doing this. Is obviously very personal to you. What a strong woman you are. Want to make sure you knew that as we were having this conversation. I'd love to just kind of transition to the conversation. What you've had such a robust career, as I shared earlier. What was that turning point? What happened? Please share. We'd love to hear more.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to everybody that's in the chat. I do see your guys' message for popping up, and I just hope that I can help even just one person, even if it's not a domestic violence situation, even if you're just at a very hard point in your life and you just need some inspiration to kind of keep going, and just knowing that, things do get better. I hope that I can help provide that. So thank you guys for your positive words. So my career, as I stated, I was going through a lot when I was trying to finish my degree. In the last couple semesters of my degree, I actually had to reach out to my professor and let them know that I couldn't attend school because my eyes were black and blue, and because my throat was swollen from him strangling me. So when the incident where I felt like I was going to die, he was on my back and he was trying to snap my neck. And I literally was squeezing with all my might, every fiber in my body. I literally was just fighting against him from being able to do so. And if I had relaxed 1 second, I would have been gone. He let up off me just a little bit for me to say my kids' names, and I did, and he snapped out of it for just a second, and I was able to get up. And then he went back to like hitting me in my back and stuff. And then I was able to kind of shield myself, and I went and grabbed my daughter off the couch and I ran out the house. So I was black and blue. I couldn't talk. My throat was swollen and everything. And I had to call my professors and let them know that I wasn't able to come to school. Thank God, because I started school in nursing. I wasn't really feeling it. Shout out to all the nurses out there. Shout out to everybody that's in the health field. I feel like it's something that you really, really, really got to have a heart for. You're taking care of people's loved ones, and throughout, my time in what I was doing, I just didn't really feel like I had the heart for it. And so I dropped out of college early on when I was pregnant with my son, before I was pregnant with my middle son, and decided to go back after my daughter for communications because I loved everything broadcasting. So a friend, like somebody close to me, a mentor was like, hey, if you want to figure out what you want to do in life, write down everything that you love to do and then figure out what degree has that. And so I wrote down everything I love to do, which is writing and talking and broadcasting, anything. I wanted to be a newscaster when I was younger, when I was a little girl. And so I wrote down all of that. I looked it up and communications came up. So I ended up going back to school for communications and media arts. So I loved it. So I excelled in it. I had A's and I was like 3.0 the whole way. And so when I had to reach out to my professors to let them know that I wasn't going to be able to, I'm like, hey, this happened. So I had to give them like all my doctor's notes and everything and the police report and all of that stuff to say, hey, I don't want to put y'all in my business, but this is what I'm dealing with. And I can't come to school like this. Like my face is completely swollen. And so they actually allowed me to finish out semester at home. So they sent me all my work and allowed me to finish out at home. So next semester I went back. I finished. So I went back next semester, and I grew up on 93.7 WBLK. That's my home radio station. And I was like, man, I just want to be at WBLK. I don't care what I have to do. So I called and I spoke to Chris Reynolds, who was my PD at the time. Everybody who's from Buffalo know who Chris Reynolds is. He was on the station for like years and years. And I begged him literally, like, I need an internship. Like, I need to be there. And he was like, so he finally agreed. And I came in, met with Cole Porter, who everybody would know who Cole Porter is as well. He was in the promotions department. So I met with Cole Porter and did my internship in promotions. I was the oldest intern. Okay. So like all these interns are like 18 years old. Cole Porter actually joked. He was like, he's like, okay, towards the end of the interview, he's like, well, how old are you? And I told him, I think I was like 25 at the time or something like that. And he was like, oh, I was going to offer you some candy, but I should offer you a shot. Let's go have a shot. And I was like, what? So, but he was joking, of course. But because all the interns was like 18 years old, 18, 19. They're like, maybe like 20, maybe like 20. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I did the internship. It was great. I worked 10 times harder because I really wanted it. Towards the end of the internship, I asked if I could be on air, like if I can go and intern on air. Shout out to the DJ Supreme. He was the DJ, the night DJ at the time. And he offered, he agreed. So I went into the studio with him. He taught me all the ropes, learned how to work the boards, cracked the mic for the first time. He asked me what my name would be. So I actually, Red Roxx is my author name. I had wrote an urban fiction novel called Lovers and Friends. And that was my only fictional name that I had at the time. So he was like, well, what's your radio name? And I said, well, my author name is Red Roxx. And he was like, Red Roxx, that works. So that's how my name became Red Roxx. And pretty much the rest was history. I went to Chris after a couple of months and I said, hey, I want a job. Like, I want to be on air. I want a show. And he had me do a couple of air checks and eventually he allowed me to do overnights. And I've been there ever since. And it's been I want to say almost 10 years since I've started my intern. So
That's awesome. It's all about that determination, that persistence, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Um, you know, during the journey, you're mentioning all of these wonderful individuals like coming up in your life and really pushing you to do your best and reach out there. That's exactly what we're trying to share with survivors too. Like reach out to your network. You have people in your court. They're there for you, and that's what it's
Yeah.
all about.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I used everybody I could. Okay. Like, listen, I'm not saying in a bad way as using people. Like, I literally, like, anyone who was willing to help. I literally, like, shout out to Tara Dixon. She was going through her own domestic situation as well, but she had a daycare. And, she's like my kid's aunt. And she had a daycare at the time. And she was like a second mom to my kids. Like, she would work with me on the daycare fees. She would help me with, like, my daycare assistance. If that was late, she would wait on it. If I, like, she literally, so when they say it takes a village to raise a child, it literally does. Like, you literally have to, you cannot be too prideful. You can't, you know, um, you can't be too prideful to ask for help, or to it's literally, it can be the difference between life and death. And it can be the difference between your children having, a terrible situation, or between a bad and a terrible situation. You know what I'm saying? So um definitely tap into your village, find your people, and hold on to them tight, because that makes all the difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Maria, I know that you've written that the book that you spoke about initially, but you've got another one that's out. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
more about it?
Yes. So it's called 10 Bad Bee Commandments. So 10 Bad Bee Commandments, as we all know, a bad bee in our urban culture is like somebody who is, pretty, long hair, nice body, money and all that good stuff. But through my journey of trying to just love myself more, I get called, oh, you a bad bee, Roxx, you this, that, third, that. And sometimes in my head, I'm like, girl, like, my life is a mess. Okay. So it really caused me to want to, like, look further into what really is a bad bee. Like, to me, I want to be I want to be called that term when I literally have my entire life together. Like, my credit is good. I'm educated. Um, my spirituality is centered. My mental health is good. My physical health is good. Like, that to me is a bad bee. That to me is somebody who I aspire to be. So through my journey of trying to be her, I wanted to take, other women along with me. So I created the 10 Bad Bee Commandments, and, every chapter focuses on something. So whether it's education, spirituality, mental health, relationships, even culinary, like, so I basically take my personal experiences. I talk about the things that I've tried, I've done, I've been successful at, I've failed at. And then I have a series of activities that I want, that I've done myself, that I want other women to go through to, enhance those areas of their life. So, like, the self-care chapter has, a self-care challenge. And then there's, like, a financial chapter as well. And there's a finance, some finance guides and stuff like that. So um, these are things that I do in real life. Like, they're not something I don't, practice things that I don't preach or whatever, what I'm trying to say. But, like, I definitely practice what I preach. And this is the things that I've done. These are things that I'm doing. And these are things that I want other women to do with me.
Absolutely. The messages keep coming in, the love and support. You know, but one person asked, I'll address the questions that we've got here coming through. Someone was curious, in this self-love journey and boosting your self-esteem and making yourself a bad bee. has counseling played any portion in your recovery process?
Big portion. Big portion. Counseling, I've had psychiatry help as well. Like I literally have done everything that I needed to do. Like at one point, I was even inpatient. Like, and I don't talk about that at all because people in our culture, especially, they want to make you feel like you're crazy. Oh, she's crazy. No, I had a mental breakdown and I needed a break, and I needed somebody to make sure that I was going to be good and give me the care that I know that I had needed. So yeah, so I had inpatient and outpatient. I've had counselors, psychiatrists, I've done it because I needed it. And a lot of us do. When you're dealing with major depression, anxiety, especially, I needed it most when I was dealing with like the gaslighting situation, because I'm really like, am I tripping? Like, because I feel like this is what it is and this is what's happening. And I'm being told on this hand that this is not reality and this is not what it is. So I need to find the middle ground. So, to having that second, that outside opinion of somebody that's able to tell me like, no, you're not tripping. You're not tripping, that helped a lot, and also dealing with like my PTSD from the physical abuse, dealing with the post-traumatic stress disorder from that, and the anxiety. So I actually consider going back to therapy, and it's just great because, my partner now, he's like, I'll go with you. Like, we'll go together and help, help figure some things out. Maybe I can figure out how to help you cope and go through things a little bit better. So it's dope, but definitely don't be afraid, and don't think that the first person that you go to has to be your end all be all either, because we're all human. We all have different perspectives. We all have different life experiences. And I don't care how many degrees you have on the wall, that's going to be your own life experiences, and your own perspectives are going to influence how you perceive things and how, and the type of care that you give. So don't feel like you have to just go to one therapist. If that one therapist or that one counselor doesn't work, then try somebody else. I went through a couple. I had a few before I really found somebody that I really liked and I really clicked with. So don't give up on it. Also, if you do go and it's you don't click with the person that you go to initially.
That's great. That's great advice. And it's funny, I'm just looking through the chat again. One of our participants has said, your story has given me so many good advice and tips to give to my own clients. So that's a great point for our participants as well. And yeah. Well, we're winding down, folks. So I'll just again encourage everyone, if you have any other questions or things that Maria can address, feel free to put them here in the chat. Otherwise, as we do wrap up, Red Roxx, where can people find you? How can we connect? What's taking place right now in life?
You can find me everywhere social media at Radio Red Roxx. So that's Radio REDD ROXX. So that's Instagram, that's Facebook. I'm not on Twitter right now. I'm gonna get back on Twitter soon though. But yeah, so just connect with me there, or you can email me at redroxbooking@gmail.com, and that's REDD ROXX.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone else for joining us this Domestic Violence Awareness Month. It's hard to believe that October is almost done, but we really appreciate your support and for really helping us shine a light on this conversation. We hope they were helpful, this conversation and the ones we've had previous. We'll make sure a survey link comes sent your way, as well as some other information. So we appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Red Roxx. Thank you, everyone. And
thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of your day.
Deanna, Megan, Cheryl, all of you guys. I wish I could shout you all guys all out. Andrea, thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.